what I'm really interested to hear today is to get all of your experience out in the open. Like you spent the last several years observing entrepreneurs, and I think people can profit so much from a clear sense of direction they can go to when they're aspiring to become a successful entrepreneur, to become a successful venture entrepreneur. And honestly, I think you're one of the best people to talk to, given that you have observed so many people now in a very close environment, getting to see them on their day to day, how they interact. So I'm really excited to pick your brains on that, and to see what all the things that I might have done wrong in the past, or things that you know now, how people can do it better. So I'm really excited about today.
That's a very tough question to start with.
Oh no, don't worry. We're gonna get in this step by step. So we need to make it a little easier for the audience. Can you pitch yourself in 1 or 2 minutes, who you are and what you're doing?
Okay. So I'm the head of Vento. Vento is the Italian chapter of Exor Ventures. And Exor Venture is the arm of Exor, investing in startup. And basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to help the Italian ecosystem to grow and be competitive in terms of startup and venture capital. And we do so with 2 programs. One is an investment program where we basically invest in early stage Italian founders, and they can be based anywhere. And we have this process that is very high velocity and always standardized. So we always invest 150K. And our objective is to invest in 100 companies per year. That it's very, very bold because the deal flow is not there yet in Italy. And that's why we also have a venture building activity that is very similar to what Entrepreneur First or Antler are doing. So basically, we select people, pre-team, pre-idea, pre-everything, people that we think can be good entrepreneur. And we pay them to join us 5 months full time, and we help them to build their own company. And of course, if everything goes well, then we invest and we back them.
So it's all part of the big picture of investing in 100 companies a year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. That's a huge goal. 100 companies a year.
Yeah. Now we are at 56 in 18 months.
Okay.
So we are still behind, but I mean, we were expecting this because the Italian ecosystem is really behind other European countries. So, I mean, we hope in 3 to 5 years we will be able to achieve our goal, but we know we have to build the ecosystem first.
Yeah. What other things apart from Vento are contributing to you getting up to 100 deals a year?
I mean, we think that the main reason why the ecosystem is so behind is that we have a lot of talents in Italy, but they usually don't consider the idea of doing entrepreneurship and doing their own company. And basically, they all want to work in consulting, in investment banking, or in big tech companies. And maybe the main reason why the situation is like that is that there are not many success stories. So our bet is that if we can build some success stories, then in 3 to 5 years, talents will be more willing to go into entrepreneurship and the ecosystem will grow more naturally, let's say.
And you're trying to create those role models yourself with Vento.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Nice. Okay, so you just started the 3rd round of recruiting for Vento, the 3rd cohort is being recruited right now. So for everyone, look at the description. I'm going to include the link for applying for Vento if you're interested in going to Turin and joining Vento for a couple of months of pure learning experience. Hard grind, but definitely worth it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very long journey in a sense,
Mhm.
because as you know, in the first months, you have to find your co-founders inside the cohort, and it's a real challenge. And then you need to become an expert about the problem, a specific problem that seems easy, but it's not. And then when you have a clear problem statement, you have to go into the solution phase and think about ideas and understand which one is the best. And then you have to test the idea and get traction from the market. So
Yeah.
it's a very long journey. But I think the best part is that you are in an environment where you have 39 people that are exactly like you, so very committed to build their own company. And you are surrounded by mentors and investors and people that are there just to help you.
Yeah. No, it certainly makes it a lot easier than sitting in a room by yourself trying to figure out all those things on your own. So now that you had two cohorts go through the whole process, a lot of them raised pre-seed rounds. So you had this phase from, or like you got to observe this whole process from like looking at the people the first time when they applied for Vento up to going through the assessment week, going through the program. How has it been? Like, do you often, when you look at the people during the assessment process, does your feeling about them, your assessment about them come true in the end, or have there been a lot of surprises so far?
I mean, I would say it's 50-50,
Okay.
because when someone is really, really good and stands out,
Mhm.
you can tell after like 5 minutes of interview. And
Okay.
so it's even easy in the selection process to find the yes, let's say.
Mhm.
But then it's not just about them, because you can select very good people, but then if they can't find a match inside the batch, there's nothing that you can do, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like a relationship. They have to find their perfect match inside the batch,
Mhm.
and it's not given that they will find him or her or them inside the group of people that you are selecting.
Mhm.
Of course, when we are selecting the final 40 participants, we try to think ahead about possible match.
Mhm.
But then it's not that easy, because maybe on paper they are the perfect match, but then on a personal level they can't really work together. So you never know. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like the interpersonal, that's a hard thing to predict. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like zooming into the entrepreneurs as individuals, like what have you found out? Like what are the kind of people on paper, let's say, that you're looking for? Like what are indicators you found for people that have potential to really have the grit to pull through and create a successful startup?
This is also a very difficult discussion, because I mean, it's not always the same for everybody. And also,
Mhm.
we are looking for a different kind of person. So it's not just one, let's say, role model. There are many, but for sure, like a common soft skills that we all are looking for are like commitment. So we ask them to tell us some stories that can show how they commit to a cause and then do
Mhm.
whatever thing they can to just achieve the goal. And also, that it's kind of similar to what I just said, is there's a huge difference between saying you want to be a founder and trying really to be a founder. So saying that you want to be a founder, it's not enough for us. You have to show us somehow that you tried in the past, or at least that, I don't know, you try to work in a startup to
Mhm.
understand how a startup work, or you had a startup and the startup failed. I mean, for us,
Mhm.
it's totally fine. But these show that it's not just like a random thoughts that you have, and maybe you just want to take a gap here, but you are really committed to build your own company. And it's a totally different commitment.
So it's really about people having not just a hunch or not just following a trend of founding a startup, becoming a startupper, but really showing that they have a bit of a track record of pursuing this dream.
Okay, I lost you for a second.
No, you're back. You're back.
Okay, sorry.
So really about like the track record, really showing that they care about it, looking into environments that are similar to what they're trying to achieve themselves, and really going deep, maybe already into a certain problem space that they feel like they can add value to.
Yeah, also because now you can find anything you need to learn online, right? If you go on the YC website, you can find anything you need. Yeah. So there are not many excuses not to know the basics of building a startup, and at least try to do so and show that you are really committed to that type of choice, let's say.
Yeah.
So maybe if you are not doing it, at the end of the day, you are not really interested in pursuing this path. And so you are not the right candidate for us.
Yeah. Gotcha. What was your experience so far with technical and non-technical founders when it comes to the struggles you have to overcome, and in the beginning with building your MVP, building your prototype, really trying to, get a product you can then iterate on, you can then pitch, you can then look for product market fit. Is your success rate, or like what you see, who like does it make it a lot easier if you are a technical founder than like that's more on the soft skill business side of things?
When we started the program, we focused the first 2 to 3 weeks on building the teams, and we always ask everyone to have at least one technical person in the team, because for us it's very important. Because if you can't build it, then you don't have it, basically.
Yeah.
But then they are very different type of people usually, and technical founders at the beginning of the program suffer a lot, because the first months are all about problem exploration and ideation. And we always tell everyone, you have to sell before build. And for them, it's very painful because they just want to build something. And you always tell them no, but then you need to be very sure that what you're building is what the customers want. So you can't just build it. You have to first test it on the market and then build it. So at the beginning of the program, there's this huge difference between business founders and technical founders, because business founders are more used to that kind of process. So they are willing to do hypotheses and test it and go back to the hypothesis. Instead, usually technical founder have a clear idea of what they want to build, and they don't understand why you have to sell first and build later. But it's not the same for everyone. We had very good technical founders that were very aware of the process from the very beginning, but usually it's not like that. But I can understand why they have a skill, they want to build, and they want to be successful. It's fine.
Yeah. So take a look into the playbook. So what does the process basically look like? After you come to Vento, you build your team, you have a problem space that you will work in. What are the steps that you have identified founders have to go through to maximize their chances of success?
So, as you said, the first two steps are finding the right match inside the batch, and then choosing a specific challenge, because we gave to the teams challenges before the starting of the program. We don't believe in starting from scratch. So even before the program starts, we collect some market needs or business insights that we think could be interesting to build a venture business on. And usually for each challenge, we have a mentor who is an expert on that specific field that then follow the team for the whole program. So after, let's say, you pick a team and you choose a challenge, the first phase is all about problem exploration. And what we ask the team is to really become experts about the problem. And the end game of this first phase is to have a clear problem statement that looks like user X need Y because Z. That it might seem very easy, but it's not, because it's not just a random statement that you write down, but you have to do many hypotheses and then test the hypothesis with the market and be sure that that is a need and there's someone who is willing to pay to solve that specific need. Then,
yeah, go on.
No, then this is just the first phase. And then when you have a validated problem statement, you can move into the solution phase. And of course, in the solution phase, there's a huge part of brainstorming. So brainstorming many ideas, even crazy one. And then you have to get to a final list of ideas and rate them based on some parameters we are usually giving to the teams. Like, I don't know, market opportunity, trend, like timing, how many times a day do they fit this problem and stuff like that. And then they have to pick the first 2 to 3 ideas and test them. So try to sell the product before building it. And then when they understand which is the best one, they can actually build it and try to get some traction on the market.
Mm-hmm. So for testing or testing your hypothesis, the first thing that comes to mind for me is like user interviews.
Yes.
Or potential user interviews. So what is like your rule of thumb? Like what is enough to really test for an hypothesis?
I mean, it's very difficult to say because there are many very different businesses. There's a huge difference between a B2C and a B2B business, for instance. So, of course, if it's a B2C business, we expect huge numbers, like hundreds. If it's a B2B business, could be, of course, less numbers, but you have to have like a list of potential customers that are ready to buy your solution if you can build it.
So really, during the program, you expect people to go out like on the B2C side and just try to find people that might be of interest, like maybe with launching a landing page or trying to gain some clicks on the site for some potentially interested people to get in touch, and then just interview until you have 100, 200 voices.
Yeah, and usually it's not a linear process. I mean, while you are doing these user interviews, you discover things you didn't know before, and then you have to go back to your hypothesis and do a new hypothesis and test it again. And it's a circle, right? It's not a linear process.
Where do you feel like with the interview process, where do you feel like are the common mistakes people make? Because there are a lot of different ways how you can run an interview. There are a lot of different questions you can ask.
I think starting from the very beginning, it's very difficult to write down an unbiased hypothesis. Because usually you have your idea of the problem and why is the problem. So usually you write a problem statement that it's already somehow biased. But you should not do so, because otherwise you're either confirming your bias or not learning anything. So starting from scratch, the formulation of the hypothesis is not easy. And also the way you interview the user. Because, I mean, of course, if I tell you, I can build this very amazing product for a very cheap price. Would you buy it? Of course, you would say yes, but this data is not really useful.
So, because like first of all, it's very hypothetical for the interviewee, and it's like very easy to say yes, but a lot harder to actually go through with the purchasing process. And plus, the product doesn't exist. You don't really actually know if it will ever be able to exist in that exact form.
Yeah, and also you should be really focused on the problem side and not on the solution side at the very beginning.
Yeah.
And you should never go into the solution space because also, I mean, usually people are nice, so they won't say to you, "No, this is a shitty idea and a shitty product." So they will always say nice things to you, but this is not what you're looking for. You're looking for a real problem that you can solve, and then you can sell something solving it. So it's a totally different process. It's not that easy.
Mm-hmm. So, what distinguishes? I feel it's a little abstract with the bias in the hypothesis. Do you have an example of like a biased, or what a biased hypothesis might sound like, and what the unbiased version might be?
Okay. So, for instance, we now have an amazing founder in residence in this month, and she's trying to work on education. And so, why there's such a huge gap between what people study in Italy and then the kind of jobs that are needed in the market, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a huge mismatch. And she was saying, I don't think that what you study is the real problem. I think the problem is the culture. So the fact that if you study philosophy in Italy, then you can't go into banking, right?
Okay.
But then if you write a problem statement like this, and for instance, you write, the students have a problem to find a job because the society is not ready to hire people with a different background. This is super biased because you are saying what is the problem. Instead, you should try and ask companies what is the problem, so why they can't find the people they need. Is a matter of hard skill, is a matter of soft skill, is a matter of training. You really don't know.
So the unbiased, what would be the unbiased version of the hypothesis?
First of all, you should validate if there's a problem in the hiring process. So you should have a problem statement like, I don't know, I'm just randomly brainstorming with you here, but something like companies have troubles in hiring this specific kind of persons. And then you have to test it. And then you have to understand why. So you should ask, if they say yes, you should ask them why. You can find them, you find them, but then they don't accept your job, or you find them, but they are not skilled enough, or you can find them, but they want to be paid too much. There could be many reasons, and you have to really be unbiased and note down everything, and then understand where the patterns are. So if 10 people, when you ask the same question, in the list of reasons said that the main reason is that they are not skilled enough, then there's a pattern then. And then you can again do another test and write down a new hypothesis saying companies have issues in finding this kind of people because they are not skilled enough. And then you test it with new people.
Okay.
And then you can grow your conviction around the problem statement. But if you don't have a clear idea of the problem, it's impossible to find a solution that then can be a product and then a venture business.
Mhm.
Because if it's not a problem, no one is willing to pay for a solution.
Yeah. And you want it not just be a solution to like some problem your target group might have, but like the most painful problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should not be a nice to have, but a must have.
Yeah, I've heard that a couple of times from successful entrepreneurs.
But it's true. I mean,
yeah, it also makes a lot of sense. I mean, so many things you can buy are nice to have. Like most of the things out there are nice to have, but the must-haves are just not that many to find, because usually you have a few pain points that really keep you up at night, and not more.
yeah, because then you have a sticky product, a product that is growing and it's easy to sell. And so, I mean, then you have a venture business, right? Otherwise, maybe you have a business, but it's not a venture business.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's actually a good topic, because that's something I try to explore more. On the one hand side, you have like entrepreneurship is this big term, and the entrepreneurs you find in it though are very, very different, because they're working on very, very different businesses. And I'm not just talking domain, but the difference between like more classic entrepreneurship and venture entrepreneurship are two different pair of shoes, in my opinion. Could you, because there's often a bit of a confusion about that. Can you go a little bit into the topic for people that are maybe thinking now of applying to Vento, but not having made this distinction of those two different paths yet? Who are really the founders that you are looking for, that should go, like what are the problems for venture entrepreneurship versus like making a non-venture business out of things?
Basically, when we are selecting who we want to back, we always ask ourselves, is this a venture business?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that difficult to understand if the answer is yes or no, because what you ask yourself is, can this be 10 times what it is today or not? Because if the answer is not, then it's not a venture business. So basically, a business is a venture business if it can grow and scale very fast and can be very, very big. It's not just about having a profitable business.
Mm-hmm.
It's about build a huge business. So
Mm-hmm.
it's totally different.
So when you say like the scale, that people should ask themselves if it's a problem where having a couple of, like, stay with B2C because it's easier for people to understand. We just have a couple of customers and you're sufficient to have a couple of employees to be profitable, to be set up for success. But for the venture case, it's relevant to really go after hundreds of thousands of customers to make the business on one hand side like profitable, but on the other hand also really go after big markets.
Yeah, it's all about ambition, no?
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you want to build a business, you can do it and it's fine, but then you don't need venture capital.
Mm-hmm.
You can go to a bank and ask for a loan. The
Mm-hmm.
reason why venture capital exists is because we back moonshot, long shot, ambitious project that can be huge.
Yeah. The moonshots.
Yeah. Or the Mars shots.
Or the Mars shots, yeah.
Yeah.
Today, both of it seems possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just yesterday, I was at TechCrunch Disrupt I was visiting Fede.
Yeah, there
Fede
was
Rent.
Federer. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a really special kind of environment to venture entrepreneurship. Just like the people, the problems, the way they sell themselves, and as you said, it's like really the ambition. You really have to think in a very, very big and often, for an outsider, unrealistic ways to even go into the space, to even try and attempt solving these kind of problems.
I think I lost you again for a second.
Okay.
But I'm back.
I was saying like the space in the venture space. Like yesterday, for example, just like looking at all the startups, the problems they were trying to tackle. Like everything seemed like super new, super exciting, big problem, lots of potential customers. So it's really, you really have to be not just really ambitious, but almost to the extent where it looks for the outside a little bit delusional. Because like how could the person that usually starts with one or two people just think that they could create value for thousands of people or create millions or billion of dollars, basically out of thin air, basically extracting it all out of their head.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, our life today is shaped by the choices of this kind of people.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for, I don't know, Steve Jobs, maybe we wouldn't have a smartphone. If it wasn't for Elon Musk, we wouldn't have electric cars. And at the beginning, they all thought they were crazy or thinks about Airbnb. I mean, if it wasn't for Brian Chesky, we maybe would just have to go in hotels. And the idea of going and stay at people's house would still be crazy today. So we need that kind of people. And that's also why I'm doing this job, because I feel like doing this job, you can really contribute to create the worlds you want to live in. And I want to live in a world that is shaped by crazy people that can think about moonshot and actually build it.
Okay. So it's really about enabling people to make their dreams come true and therefore help a lot of people make their lives better.
Yeah, they're shaping the world we live in. And I think it will be like this, even they will have even a greater impact in the future.
How so?
I mean, the role of technology is becoming more and more important. Just think about also all the AI revolution. And now, compared to, I don't know, 50 years ago, there is much more capital also for venture capital and much more crazy people trying to build something new. So of course, in 10 years, I'm expecting hundreds more people like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs.
Okay. So you see a current trend of like more and more people going out there going after crazy problems?
Yeah, I mean, there are more capitals, more knowledge in general, and more possibilities. And of course, technology is a huge enabler. So this is my educated guess.
Okay. I'm curious to see how it works out. But honestly, like just looking at how media, like how much coverage of startups you have now than let's say 10 years ago, when I was in high school, I feel like startups were a lot less publicly debated than they are now.
Yeah, because we lacked role models back then, but I feel like now you have many more. And even, I guess, if you ask to someone in your high school now, I think they know what a startup is. But I mean, for me, back in the days, I didn't know about startups, not even at university.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, okay. I can see we're betting on this trend to continue. There's actually something. You have those different, well, let's say, trends in the sense of people you wanna bet your money on. Like in the last decade, I feel like there was quite a trend to support founders, like the charismatic, visionary, big words, big numbers, kind of people, like the Adam Newmans of this world. Like sitting now on the side where you have to evaluate where you put your money on. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, have the past, well, I don't want to call it catastrophes, but I mean, WeWork and Theranos might be kind of tough examples, and for a lot of people, tough pills to swallow. But how do you feel about the happenings of the past when it came to charismatic founders, like not living up to it? Like, how important is it for you? Like the presentation, the vision compared to, let's say, actual numbers, actual successes that are happening right now?
I mean, of course, compared to, let's say, even 2021, when there was a huge peak in valuation and there was a lot of capital, the situation is very different today. We are in a bear market and we are all more cautious. But I think it's also a good thing because now we are more grounded and we are more disciplined on who we are backing. And of course, in an environment like this, the one who don't know what they're doing won't survive. And in a way, it's a good thing for the market. And we are not very worried about like false positive, let's say. We are more worried about false negatives. Because since we invest in many companies, for us, the highest risk is to miss a good one rather than to invest in the wrong one.
Mm-hmm. So when you sit down and think about companies to back for you, it's mainly pre-seed, seed?
Pre-seed, yeah, pre-seed seed.
Okay. What are the things you look out for someone raising pre-seed?
This is a topic we discuss a lot in the office with our colleagues and with our mentors. I'm asking this question to everybody. But I mean, for us, there are two main things we look at. The first one is about the team, so team quality. But then you can ask me, okay, and what is quality, right? And you can use many different metrics, but at the end of the day, it's all about, is the team the right team, meaning do they get along each other? Do they want to build this stuff together? Are they a very good team together? Can they understand what the customer needs? And can they build what the customer needs? And that's it. I guess it's all about these three questions. And then there's the, let's say, market side. And the main question there is the market big enough? Is this a venture business? How many competitors are there? How can they build a moat around their company? And that's it.
With moat, you mean?
How can they, I mean, do they have any barrier or not? Because if it's easily replicable, then it's not really a business you can bet on.
Yeah. So like really building barriers for anyone else trying to compete with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the one hand side, like really looking into the founder problem match, and on the other hand, looking at the, I guess, product market
Yeah.
fit. to that point. Like how, like what are you expecting to see? Like when someone raises pre-seed, what's the range of data the team should already have, the amount of like product advancement the team should have?
We invest very early. I was looking at data from our portfolio yesterday, and in more than 30% of our companies, we invested when they didn't even have an MVP. So it was just
Okay.
a team and an idea. But of course, I mean, if you have metrics, if you have users, or if you have revenues, for us, the point is to understand if you really have traction about what you're building. And even if you just have few customers, we want to see customers that are in love with your product. You have to show somehow that you have some initial product market fit.
Mm-hmm. Like how long do people usually work on their problem they're or trying to found when raising pre-seed? Like what's the timing?
You mean how much time do they spend in the problem phase?
Yeah.
It really depends because, I mean, of course, if you are a user yourself, it's really easy. Many of the companies we backed were started from people who felt the problem in the first place. So if you felt the problem, you know what you're talking about, you
Yeah.
know what you need, and it's very easy. But if you are coming from a different background, it can be really hard to understand what is the root cause of the problem and to understand if it's actionable because it's not granted, and if so, how can you solve it? So it could
Mm,
be 2 months, but also 2 years. You never know.
yeah. Okay. Quite a long time frame. Like with pre-seed, if you invest in a company, how, how does it work with what you get in return? Because it's too early for them to really have an evaluation. So it's really hard to say like, okay, we get X% as investors. How does it work with pre-seed?
So usually we don't have a target ownership in mind. So we really assess case by case, and we can either give a term sheet or be fast follower in a term sheet. When it comes to us in pre-seed, we usually try to do convertible notes or safe. So you don't really need to discuss the valuation at the moment. You just have a cap or a discount or both, and then you will discuss the real valuation at the next round. And I think it's a pretty common procedure in the early stages.
So that means you sit down with a startup, feel like makes sense to invest in, and you discuss like, okay, their cap would basically be in the next round when they raise, we assume like a maximum of this kind of valuation.
Yeah.
And how do you make the calculation? How do you make the estimate for ideal or like maximum amount of profit you might make until then?
No, usually you don't do that in early stage because
Okay.
in many cases they don't even know what's their business model. So you
Hmm.
can run like financials and discounted cash flow and stuff like that.
Hmm.
You really just look at the team quality and the market opportunity, and then you
Hmm.
look at all the deals in the market in the same period and what are the valuations, and you just try to be in that range.
Okay. And then
And
when
of
they,
course, you look
yeah.
also at the market trend, right? For instance, now that we have a bear market, you have to be very careful with valuation because if you give them a valuation that it's very high, then they can have trouble in raising their next round. So you always also talk to funds who usually invest in later stages to understand what is their what are their thoughts and what are the kind of deals they're doing and what are their valuation, and you're trying to think about then what could be a fair valuation for a pre-seed if they then have to raise a seed in, I don't know, 1 year, 18 months.
So like you get like the valuation then is like you have fixed valuation then like with your when they raise seed round, and then you will get some part of the equity starting from the seed round.
Yes. Yeah, you only convert in the next round.
And then you are selling that immediately like to the people that are investing, or do you carry that over to, let's say, Series A? Like how long do you stay in the investment before you cash out?
We want to be long-term partners, so we
Okay.
usually stay. Also because, I mean, Exor Ventures is a big fund. I'm in charge of the investment thesis on Italy, but we also have global investment thesis, and we can invest anywhere from pre-seed to pre-IPO. So if we really believe in a company, we can even invest at every round. So we usually stay in companies.
Okay. As far as I understand, like when venture funds, like you basically start a new fund, meaning that someone manages that fund, someone and their team looks at different opportunities over a certain time frame, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like how big are the funds Exor Ventures usually sets up, or how do you make an estimate of how big a fund should be?
I mean, we are not the usual fund because we are a permanent fund, so we don't have a preset amount of capital we can deploy. So we are very opportunistic. In Italy, as I said, we have this objective to invest in 100 companies. So the ballpark is like 15 million, 20 million, something like that.
Okay.
But of course, I mean, if we find something we really like, we can even just put 10 million in a company.
Okay. And then usually like the fund duration is how can someone from the outside imagine that? Because I heard that's like a something to consider as well. If the fund is just opened up, then you might have like a long time before the investors are actually wanting to cash out, like wanting to get their money back. But
Yeah, but
sometimes
our luck is that we only have one LP, and the LP is Exor, so there's no one pushing us to sell anything.
Yeah. Okay, so it's really about looking for the most ideal point of time, like in terms of getting the most out of the deal, and not about like timing.
We don't have a deadline.
Oh, that's nice.
It's very nice.
It's also great for founders.
Yeah, it's very good for founders because you don't have the pressure of the investor that want to cash out, right? You know they can stay with you even forever. I mean, in the broader Exor, we have companies that have hundreds of years of stories, so we are not in a hurry at all. If the company is working, we can stay there forever.
Yeah. That is great. I heard more often than not experienced founders, like successful founders, people that have just been in the startup space for a long time, that they are advising for people to be more patient. Like on the one hand side, like with startups, you want them to move fast, right? Because often the time windows of an opportunity before other competitors come up, there's always like a pressure to move fast. But on the other hand, that can often lead to being hasty. Like, what is your experience with founders, like when it comes to the kind of mindset? Are you more looking for people who are just like taking very calculated risks, or do you also appreciate the people that just move fast, break things, try to go into things, and then iterate their way from there?
I mean, again, it really depends on the market environment. I think a few years ago was right to say just go fast and break things because the cost of capital was nearly zero.
Yeah.
So, even if you do a lot of mistakes, then you raise a new round at a crazy valuation and you're fine. But today is not like that anymore. So I think you have to be more cautious in your choices. And it's not good enough to just go fast. You have to go fast and do the right choices. So it's kind of different than go fast and break things.
Yeah. So maybe so your advice in the current market with like really high interest rates would be for people to be on the side of caution, really get the data, really have a really good insight into what they're doing, and not moving too quickly.
Yeah, because the reality is that now there is less capital, or at least people is not really willing to deploy the capital.
Yeah.
So there is more competition among founders.
Yeah.
So either you have very good numbers or you won't raise a new round.
Yeah.
So you really have to focus on traction and on unit economics, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Just a quick thing. Your hair is rubbing a little against the microphone.
Sorry.
Just making sure that the audio quality stays well. Okay, yeah, that's a really good thing. Like, I feel like for people that are not too well versed with economics, it's easy to overlook. Like, you hear it in the media, interest rates are high, etc., etc. But what that translates to when you want to found a startup, for a lot of people, that might not be super clear. So I feel like this is very helpful to know that the environment you're in, the financial environment you're in, really influences the strategy you should apply to your business.
Yeah. Do you want me to explain why it's so?
Oh, please.
No, it's pretty easy. At the end of the day, we when you are doing venture capital, you are only talking about private market, right? So we have all this valuation, but the valuation is just the results of what we are doing. So it's all about private subject deciding what the valuation is. But then when you have a public company and you are in a stock market, is the market that is deciding about your valuation. And we know that when the interest rate increase, the public market usually goes down. So of course for us is the same, because the only way we can benchmark if our valuation are fair or not is look at similar company in the public market. And so now, if you look at tech companies in the public market, you can see that there was a huge decrease in the value. And for us, it's the same. And so, of course, then everything is getting more difficult, raising a round, having a good valuation, deploying capital, and so on and so forth. And also the cost opportunity of investing in venture is not that interesting now.
Yeah.
You have many other opportunities.
Yeah. Your money can sit in the bank for certain 5% capital gain year by year. So why take the risk? Yeah, it's tricky. Especially took a lot of businesses by surprise. Just yesterday I was talking to a guy who's been in the startup space for the past 20 years, and like even the successful businesses that he looks at, like the friends of his might have, like a lot of them lost 95% of the valuation. That went down from $1 billion couple to like 100 million in valuation, which is something if you've only, like me, only experienced bull markets, you don't even want to think that is possible. You can't even grasp like why that would happen.
Yeah, but also, now we are all very focused on the valuation issue. But if you are a founder and if you are an early stage founder, I think you should think about the long term. So of course now we have this bear market, valuation are down, and maybe you have to dilute yourself more. But if you want to build a company that would be here in 10 years, I'm sure that you will have again a better market condition where it will be everything will be more founder friendly, and so you will have more power and the valuation will be higher, and you can regain some of the share you lost at the beginning. So I think now it's important to focus on what you need to achieve your goal and don't spend too much time on negotiating the valuation, because in the long term it won't count too much.
Yeah, I gotcha. That is good to know. I was just thinking with for founders getting into the space right now. As we said earlier, startups are coming, or the startup space is becoming more and more trendy. It attracts more and more people, but it's hard for someone, like especially in their 20s, who might not have exposure to people going through the whole process year by year. It might be really hard to imagine what that means, committing to an idea, committing to a startup for their life. Like often when I hear people that are in the process, they talk about like a time frame of like 5 years. That they, whenever they think about a problem, before they commit to it, they won't kind of really want to feel for themselves, is that something they would want to commit their lives to for the next 5 years? But then, like you just mentioned, for example, like 10 years into the future, what would you advise someone who wants to become an entrepreneur? Like with what mindset when it comes to commitment, when it comes to planning the life ahead, should they approach this question, if or not to become a venture startup founder?
I think it's again a matter of ambition. If you are very ambitious, you should commit at least for 10 years.
Okay.
And of course, from the investor perspective, to see someone who is ready to commit to 10 years is a huge signal of ambition, and it's something that we like a lot.
Yeah.
But of course, there are many examples of business that were built and sold in 5 years and were pretty successful, but it's much less likely.
Yeah. So a typical time horizon of a successful startup is closer to the 10-year mark.
Yeah.
Wow, 10 years. I mean, 10 years ago, I was sitting in school having even less idea of the world that I have right now. It's always, I always find it a little scary.
Yeah, but it's not like, I mean, to me, it's much more scary to think about 10 years in a corporate rather than 10 years building my own startup. So it depends how you look at it.
What does the fear for you look like?
My biggest fear is to do every day the same kind of job for 10 years. While when you're building your startup, every day you have to bring a new piece, right? So it's a totally new job every day.
Yeah. Like,
and it's all about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess so, yeah. You're carrying it all on your shoulders versus being like in a pre-built environment where everyone else carries just a little bit of the responsibility. You started, when I remember that correctly, with the School of Entrepreneurship and Innovation?
Yes.
Or in Italy?
Yes.
What was the was the name?
It's right. It was SEI, yeah. It was back in 2017.
2017, okay.
Yeah.
So 6 years. It has been 6 years for you running your own company, creating your own little startup in that sense, right?
Yeah. It's kind of my startup, and also was very tough at the beginning because it was 2017 and in Italy no one was speaking about startup and everyone was very skeptical about what we were trying to do. But then, day after day, we were able to build conviction around what we were doing. And now is finally becoming something that can really have an impact on the ecosystem. But it was a very, very, very long trip, a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of moments where I was asking myself, what are you doing? But I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's worth it. And I can see why people are choosing to build their own company. Because, of course, you can have ups and downs, but it's your startup, it's your company, it's your dream. So you're really suffering and cheering for something you want to do. You're not doing it for someone else or something else or a goal that it's not close to your heart and your vision. So at the end of the day, I'm very happy about everything, also the tough moments we had.
Yeah. That's great. Like, I really appreciate the tough side of things, and that's like the ultimate proof that you're on the right way. Like, what were the toughest things you had to encounter, you had to get through in those past 6 years?
Oh, there are so many. So at the very beginning, we started with like more an educational focus. So we were doing entrepreneurship programs for students, mainly university students. And I mean, we were always fighting with the system and with kind of everything because we were pushing students to be ambitious and to really try to pursue this kind of careers. But then on the other side, everyone else was saying to them that startup is just a fun hobby, but it's not really something you can build your life on. And so also families were really against everything we were doing because, of course, they were sending their kids to university and hoping that they could be bankers or consultants or employees in big tech. And we were pushing them to leave everything and try to build their own company. So at the beginning, we were not very supported by anyone. And also, when you're doing education, you can't choose, right? You get what you get, and not everyone is the right target for what you want to build. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the outcome is not always great. I mean, maybe you're lucky and you find someone who is really good fit for being an entrepreneur, but in most of the cases, you're not. But of course, even back then, you could see the impact of what you were doing. For instance, 2 people in my team today were among the first students we had in our programs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that is already a huge impact. I mean, if I hadn't started there, I wouldn't have these 2 people in my team, and maybe they wouldn't choose this kind of career at all because they were not aware about it. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, there were many difficult moments during the pandemic, of course, because our business is a people business. And when we were forced to do everything remote, was very tough to have the same level of commitment and outcome. So it was a very tough moment, but also was a pivotal moment for us because we had the time to sit and think about what we were doing and then build the conviction we needed to then start the venture building program and the investment program. So that's why I'm saying there were very tough moments, but those moments were also the best one for us and for the future of what we were building. In retrospective, at the time, I was not very happy about it.
Oh, all right. Huh. I can only imagine what like all those thought processes and doubts and everything that you encountered over those times.
Yeah, and also the fact that I'm a young woman in Italy doesn't help me a lot.
Is there a lot of pushback from like, because there's a lot of pushback from like older established, I guess, males in the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's mainly a male business.
Yeah.
And the average age of partners in funds in Italy, I guess it's around 50.
Wow.
So it's very different. And so it's not always easy. But I think we are building our own credibility no matter what. And also what I think is that I don't want to spend my time in trying to change someone that can't change his minds or her minds on stuff like this. I would rather spend time with young people than that tomorrow will be the leaders of these funds and try to push them to change things.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's a very, very future oriented
Yeah.
mindset. A lot of things you can't change in the present, right? Like especially certain opinions or certain types of people.
Yeah.
This is always, that's something I hear often, like in all sorts of spaces, that sometimes you just have to wait for the previous generation to retire, to get out, and then be ready to, well, take over the steering wheel and be ready to fill their spaces and then have the impact on things that you want to have the system change from within.
Yeah. And also, I feel like our generation is totally different, and it's already a very good sign.
Yeah, exciting. When you are looking for your team members, for the people you hire, the people you want to work with, what are you looking out for?
Craziness. Mostly. No, I mean, our life is a total mess because we are doing like 10 things at once and we always work a lot, work late. We are always very committed. And even on holidays, everyone is replying to emails and calls and stuff. So we are kind of crazy, but not because we are workaholic. Maybe we are, but mainly because we love our job. And that's the issue, because we can't stop thinking about what we can do better, how we can perform better, and how can we grow faster and stuff. So I think the common skill of the team is that we are all overachiever. So we are never satisfied. We always want more. And they are all very resourceful people.
Okay. So, bit of craziness, very driven, very resourceful.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you look for that in recruiting process? Like, how do you go about that?
It's not very different from the recruitment process we do for the founders. Mainly, we ask them to give us example of real life and show us somehow that they are driven, they are resourceful, and they really love this environment and they love the mission. Because I mean, we have a big vision. We are not just working for the return of the fund. We are working to let the entire ecosystem grow and be as important as other European ecosystems. So it's much more than just money. So you really have to believe in what we're doing.
Okay. So you're really looking for the, I guess, like vision match with the people you're recruiting.
Yeah.
I always imagined that to be a really, really tough thing to do. Like for, let's say, for companies, I've always only sat on the recruitee side of things. Like for the organizations that I've recruited for, usually the time commitment was a little shorter, so you could have it much more driven by just like maybe cultural fit, but less like with the big vision. But I imagine that it's really hard for someone who's like just wants to have that job because they think that's a great opportunity for them to really find out what they're saying is true to what is more of an exaggeration, like a little bit fake it till you make it kind of mentality. How do you go about the vision alignment? Like, what are indicators for that?
I mean, again, you have to give me examples of things you have done that went somehow in the same direction. So, giving you some examples, if you were working in a students' association that was working in the entrepreneurship space or stuff like that, it's already a kind of sign that you were trying to commit to something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now the ecosystem is pretty small, so you know almost everyone. And so you can easily ask for referrals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're trying to look for data outside of the applicant's sphere. They don't have to deliver that themselves, but you really look to see for indicators of the reputation with other people. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess that's an advantage of a small system.
I guess so. Yeah, at least one.
We were talking earlier about the founder match, like the team building aspect of Vento. That this is a huge challenge, that you can get the best people into the program, but it's a lot is on them to really find a really good match. And I also see this as a huge issue a lot of people face when they're trying to find their co-founders outside of programs like Vento. What are your tips for founders that are looking for building their team of co-founders? What are things you should look out for? What are red flags?
So, we have an entire playbook about how you should choose your co-founders. But I think there's a rule that it's mainly common sense, but it's not easy to follow. And it's about like, don't choose people that is like you. And even if you know it, then when you are in a group of 39 people, you tend to stay with people that are more similar to what you are in terms of background, in terms of even, I don't know, skills and who you are as a person. So I think the most common mistake here is that people tend to choose people that they like on a personal level, but it doesn't mean they are the best match to build a company with.
Mm-hmm.
And you may think that it's a very easy rule and everyone should be ready to follow it. But then at the end of the day, it's always easier to choose someone you really get along with.
Yeah.
So for us, this is the hardest part.
I mean, it is. It's really hard to look into the future. People will change. People's needs and wants will change, and especially when it comes to such a strong commitment. Like often people compare it to getting married
It
to
is.
someone. 10 years looking into the future, you might it's hard enough to predict your own needs and wants and how you might develop, but to do that for one other person or two other people, yeah, maybe that's the most important decision you will make as a startup founder,
Yeah.
whom to get in bed with.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the most important decision you have to make.
So when you say like someone, I mean, I guess I wanted to ask like the conflict between like someone you is more like you, like someone you get along with very well versus someone you just align on the business aspect. I've, from the teams that I've seen, and there's surely a sample bias there, it both works out. Like some founders spend most of the time outside of working together as well, just because they enjoy each other's company or they're really good friends. Whereas other successful founders I see are just really purely on the business basis.
I think it's like the problem statement discussion we had before. I mean, if you also get along, it's a nice to have, but it's not a must have.
Okay. So most important thing is be complementary
and be aligned on the end game. I mean, because
yeah.
I can choose you because I like you, but then if you want to do an exit in 5 years and I'm thinking about a 20 years business, we are not aligned.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge point. Yeah. I mean, it might be a tough conversation to have and to ask the other person to really go into their own mind and clearly think about what they want to get out of it. Because often the first thing people say is they're just like really excited about that space. They want to create all those things. But more often than not, it's a vehicle to status, to money, expecting a large payout in the end. And,
yeah, but I mean, even if it's just about money, I'm not judging, but you should tell.
Yeah, and then
other.
if
Because
everyone
then
is
maybe you
aligned
can
on that,
find someone that it's exactly like you and it's only about money, and then you are aligned and you are a perfect fit.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like also from my own matchmaking experience at the beginning of Vento, like the questions, like you really have to be honest to yourself, and then you really have to be honest to people you don't know.
Yeah,
it's
tough.
It's tough, especially when it comes then to looking for complementary skills. Like you know that, especially being non-technical founder, you look for a very limited pool of technical founders, and it's kind of like bargaining for getting
the
best one into that team. Yeah, that's very tricky. Yeah, it's a lot of negotiation and a lot of negotiation you have to do with yourself.
Yes, but then I mean, if you find the right match, it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, I feel like with my cohort, you really see it where it really worked out. And where it didn't, just like how people talk about their day to day, how people talk about how they overcome adversity. Sometimes it's more me focused, and sometimes you just always hear them saying other people's names in a positive way, and okay, that's a complete different ways. That's complete different founder stories.
Yeah, it's fun. You can see the whole spectrum of things that can happen.
Yeah. So exciting. And tides are shifting. We talked about the financial markets. We talked that the whole space is a little bit upside down right now. But when it comes to the current trends that you observe, like you mentioned, the whole AI revolution, what are your thoughts on trendiness when it comes to picking a problem, and also like then thinking of like possible solutions for it. Where do you see like the trend factor, the attractiveness factor? How should people be influenced by that? Think like from the perspective of, okay, where investors might be more willing to invest in as well, where it might be a little bit easier to generally have a good reception of your ideas and of your problem.
I usually don't focus too much on the trend. I tend to focus mainly on the market and on the need, because I guess the important part is to find a need that is a real pain for at least some customers. And then, of course, when you have a clear problem statement in mind, you have to consider all the trends, because of course they are there and they will have an impact on the problem. But I think it's a second thought. It's not the first thought you should have, because if you just want to be in the startup on AI for the sake of AI, I don't think it's enough, because then you just have a solution looking for a problem.
Yeah.
And it's not the right way to start.
Mm-hmm. When you look, for example, at like when people choose the problem space they're going to be in, like, for example, just yesterday at TechCrunch Disrupt, there was a whole section of sustainability startups that didn't exist 5 years ago because it just also wasn't as much in the public eye. How do you, when startup founders are like in a very agnostic phase of the problem space they should go into, should trends play a role? Should they carry any weight when you make your decision, or should you go purely after like your founder problem fit?
But you mean in general or inside Vento?
General.
I guess, of course, if you don't have any idea, you should for sure look at the trends out there and understand where the real opportunities are. But again, I feel like the most important decision is about your co-founders. So if you are a founder and you have to find a co-founders, I would rather prioritize the choice of the co-founders rather than the topic.
Okay. Thank you for the honest answer. That's certainly helpful. Well, honestly, you gave me so many great inputs.
Thank you.
Gonna be a lot of things to reflect on. Also reflecting on my own thoughts when it comes to creating a company in the future. Certainly gonna be helpful.
Can't wait to see the company.
Me neither. Can people get in touch with you for questions about Vento or questions about entrepreneurship in general?
Yeah, sure. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn, so they can write me there. And also, if you are posting the website, you can find some emails, and so you can shoot us an email, and we will try to reply as quickly as possible.
Perfect. I will make sure to include all those links in the description. All right. Thank you so much, Diyala. And thank everybody for listening. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.